Hello friends, today we will discuss one of the most important topics frequently asked in UPSC ancient history questions, both prelims and mains. So the most important concept UPSC frequently asks is about the inscriptions. So inscriptions is a source to understand the ancient Indian history. It comes under written sources. Inscription is an engraving on a hard rock or any other surface where the rulers, the emperors used to engrave the message they wanted to convey to the people of their generation or the future generations. That is the meaning of inscriptions. Whatever the rulers wanted to convey to the people of their own times, or they wanted to convey to the future generations about their glorious achievements, they engraved this message on very hard surfaces like copper plates or on rocks or on the pillars they made. So that is called inscription. So inscription is a very important source to study, especially the ancient history of India, when publishing of books or writing of manuscripts was not yet popular at that time. So now, whenever we see the term inscription, we need to understand the most important person in Indian history, the most important emperor of Indian history, who gave prominence, who gave priority to make inscriptions to convey his thoughts, was the last great Mauryan emperor Ashoka. So the last great Mauryan emperor Ashoka was one of the greatest rulers in India, and also the person who conveyed his thoughts to his people through the method of making these inscriptions. So Ashoka in his reign means rule, had made 4 kinds of inscriptions. Ashoka made 4 kinds of inscriptions. I am first explaining the inscriptions made by Ashoka. Ashokan inscriptions. 4 types. So first one, major rock edicts. Major rock edicts of Ashoka. Second one, minor rock edicts of Ashoka. Third one, major pillar edicts. Major pillar edicts of Ashoka. And fourth one, minor pillar edicts of Ashoka. So Ashoka made these 4 kinds of inscriptions or edicts in order to convey his ideas about governance, about what constitutes Dhamma. So Ashoka made these 4 kinds of inscriptions in order to convey his thoughts to the people of his time and also people who belong to the future generations. So what are the most important ideas that Ashoka transmitted through inscriptions? Especially Ashoka made it clear that he was following in his own empire the policy of Dhamma. So Ashoka's Dhamma policy was followed, was propagated through these inscriptions or edicts. Major rock edicts, minor rock edicts, major pillar edicts and minor pillar edicts. Through these edicts and inscriptions, Ashoka conveyed his thoughts, ideas. So what is the meaning of Dhamma? Dhamma means Buddhist ethics. Ashoka believed that instead of using force against the people from stopping them from practicing violence, it would be useful to avoid this violence practiced by the people by spreading ethical values among them called Dhamma policy. More importantly, Buddhist ethics. And Ashoka appointed, he also conveyed through these inscriptions, so that he appointed a certain number of officers called Dhamma Mahamatas officers specially appointed by the emperor to teach these Dhamma policy to his administrators and most importantly to the people, to the subjects. And also Rajukas, Pradeshikas and Dhamma Mahamatas, they were all appointed by Ashoka in order to convey his thoughts to the people. And Ashoka also had forbidden sacrifices, rituals and certain rites practiced by people at that time which were causing violence to animals, especially on certain auspicious days. So he had forbidden certain sacrifices to protect the lives of animals. That was also conveyed in his inscriptions. And another important thing, Ashoka also conveyed his grief, suffering, sadness that he experienced after he defeated Kalinga war. So after Kalinga war, Ashoka experienced grief over the death of millions of people, lakhs of animals. So Ashoka also conveyed this grief to his people through these inscriptions and edicts. So this constitutes the core of Ashokan inscriptions. Core of Ashokan inscriptions lies in these 4 points. Along with these, there were also some minor issues like Ashoka granting some donations to the Buddhist Sangha and also Ashoka reducing the taxes on the people who were living in the Lumbini region of present-day Nepal, because that was the birthplace of Buddha. And also Ashoka replaced war with peace. Bheri Ghosha, music of war, was replaced by Dhamma Ghosha. So music of Dhamma, the voice of Dhamma. So these kind of issues were conveyed to the people of his time by Ashoka using his inscriptions. So he very effectively used these inscriptions methods which were placed at very important crowded places of those times in order to convey his thoughts to his people, what he was expecting from the people and what form of government he was giving to the people in order to lead a very peaceful country, But these inscriptions were completely neglected. They were not known to Indians before early 19th century. But one East India Company official called James Prinsep, an East India Company official and also an archaeological enthusiast who was interested in archaeology, in 1837, so he first found out about great Ashokan inscriptions. Okay, so these are all the important details we need to study, we need to remember about Ashoka. That is very important for UPSC examination. Okay, so along with these inscriptions, there were also another inscription made by Ashoka called Rumindale inscription. So what is the importance of this Rumindale inscription? So this Rumindale inscription was made, it was established in Lumbini area of Nepal, that I just explained. That when Ashoka visited this place, so he was so much overwhelmed by the thought that that was the birthplace of Buddha, whose philosophy had changed the heart and mind of Ashoka. So he granted some tax concessions to the people of Lumbini. That was made in this pillar. Okay, this pillar inscription. And also another great pillar inscription made by Ashoka was at Allahabad, Kaushambi. Allahabad pillar inscription. So this inscription is important for two reasons. First one, this is Kaushambi. Kaushambi was the ancient name of Allahabad. In the ancient era of Indian history, it was called Kaushambi. So it was connected with two great emperors in ancient Indian history. One was Ashoka, another was Samudragupta. These two great emperors of ancient history were connected with Kaushambi or Allahabad inscription. So Ashoka used this inscription especially to preach his Dhamma policy. What constitutes Dhamma? What are the benefits of Dhamma were explained by Ashoka in this Kaushambi or Allahabad pillar inscription. But the same inscription was used by Samudragupta in order to explain to the people of his time and also the future generations about the glorious achievements. Samudragupta used this inscription in order to explain about his glorious invasions and glorious conquests. Glorious invasions and conquest were all explained by Samudragupta's court poet, a Sanskrit poet called Harisena. These invasions were explained by Harisena, the Sanskrit poet at the court of Samudragupta, the greatest of all the Gupta rulers, who ruled between 4th century to 6th century, who were the last great emperors of ancient India. Okay, so that is why Samudragupta's inscription is also called Prashasti. That is also called Allahabad Prashasti. Prashasti means glorifying oneself. Okay, so these are the important inscriptions made by first Ashoka and another by Samudragupta. Now we come to another very important inscription made by Ashoka only, called Musky inscription. Musky. So this Musky inscription was made and established in South India, Karnataka region of South India, especially at a place called, in a district called Raichur district. Raichur district of Karnataka. So this Raichur district played a very important role. This geographical region played a very important role in the history of the Vijayawada Empire as well. Vijayawada Empire. It was also connected with Vijayawada Empire. So this Raichur, at that time it was called Doab. Doab, because it is situated in the region which constitutes Doab. Doab means a land that is in the middle of two rivers, especially Tungabhadra river, in this case Tungabhadra river, and Krishna river, Raichur Doab. So what was the importance of this Raichur district and the inscription made? So here Ashoka says that Ashoka was termed by the makers of this inscription as Piyadasi. So emperors would not be mentioned with their original names. Okay, their real names, but they were referred to with their titles. So what is the title of Ashoka? So this title was mentioned in all the inscriptions that were founded by James Prinsep. So what was the title given to or given to himself by Ashoka? So that title was Devanam Piya Piyadasi. That was the title given to Ashoka by the makers of or the writers of these inscriptions. So what is the meaning of Devanam Piya Piyadasi? Devanam Piya means the beloved of the gods. Piya, the Sanskrit version of Priya. So Devanam, so the beloved of the gods. And also Piyadasi means a person who is beautiful to behold, to look at. So that is the title given to Ashoka. And another great inscription made by Ashoka was this Kalinga inscription, Kalinga edict. So in this Kalinga edict, so what was mentioned in the Kalinga edict, especially Ashoka's transformation in his innermost heart from a ambitious, very aggressive emperor who destroyed Kalinga to make it a part of his large empire. There was a transformation of the innermost heart of Ashoka. Transformation from an aggressive emperor to the supporter of, patron of Dhamma. So that transformation in the hearts of Ashoka was mentioned in this Kalinga edict. So after all these edicts, now let us come to the edicts or the inscriptions made by other great rulers belonging to other empires. There was Aihole inscription. So what was there in this Aihole inscription? So it was there in Karnataka and it was made by the Chalukyas. It was in Karnataka and it was made in the time period of Chalukya. It actually referred to the great achievements of one of the greatest rulers of the Chalukya period called the Pulakesin II. So his greatest achievements were mentioned in the Aihole inscription. What were his greatest achievements? That he stalled the invasion or the attack of Harshavardhana from the northern part of India. Especially his stopping of the invasion from northern part of India. So this invasion was made by Harshavardhana, one of the greatest Buddhist emperors. Okay, Harshavardhana, he made invasions in order to conquer the territory south of the Vindhyas, the Narmada river. But on the banks of this Narmada river, his invasion was defeated. Harshavardhana's invasion was defeated by Pulakesin II. Pulakesin II defeated Harshavardhana on the banks of Narmada and he protected the South India from being integrated by Harshavardhana in his North Indian empire. So Harshavardhana remained only as the emperor of North India alone because of the contributions of Pulakesin II that was actually mentioned in this Aihole inscription. Okay, so as I already mentioned to you, Harshavardhana as one of the great Buddhist emperors of India. Who were the other? So Ashoka, as we already know, Ashoka was the first great Buddhist emperors. So he followed Hinayana sect of Buddhism, one of the greatest Buddhist emperors. Second was Kanishka. So he was a great patron of Mahayana sect of Buddhism, along with Harshavardhana. So who came after the end of Gupta rule? He was also one of the great patrons of Mahayana Buddhism. These were the great patrons of Buddhism. These were the great emperors patronized Buddhism. Okay, helped in the spread of Buddhism all over India. So he was defeated by Pulakesin II. That was mentioned in the Aihole inscription. Next, another important inscription that was made in the ancient times was the Junagadh rock inscription. Junagadh rock inscription. So what is explained by this Junagadh rock inscription. So it was made by a ruler called Rudra Daman. Made by a ruler called Rudra Daman. So he was the ruler. So it was made in the mid 2nd century CE. In the mid 2nd century CE, CE can also be called AD. So in the mid 2nd century CE, it was made by a person called Rudra Daman, and it was written in chaste Sanskrit. Chaste, very pure Sanskrit. Okay, but all the Ashokan inscriptions were made in different languages except for Sanskrit. They were made in different languages which were spoken in those areas. Either Prakrit, or Greek, or Aramaic, all these languages were used in these inscriptions. But this was made in chaste Sanskrit. So what was mentioned there? So there were many important things mentioned, but the most important was that a Sudarshan lake was constructed by one of the governors of Chandragupta Maurya. In the Sudarshan lake was built by one of the governors of Chandragupta Maurya in the Junagadh region of western part of Gujarat. So it actually gives us the information that the rulers of ancient India were not only interested about invasions, conquest, administration, and also maintaining law and order, but also the welfare of the people of India. How to better their conditions was also the important consideration. Take the example of Ashoka's Dhamma policy only. Next one, the last great inscription of the ancient times. These are the most important of the inscriptions that I believe are very important from the UPSC perspective, from the exam perspective. So, another great inscription that was made was the Nashik inscription. Nashik inscription. So, Nashik in present day Maharashtra. So this Nashik inscription was made by Gautami Putra Satakarni's mother, Gautami Balasri. Gautami Balasri was the mother of Gautami Putra Satakarni. So she made this inscription. So this inscription is different than the other inscriptions because it was made by a lady, a woman. She was the mother of one of the great rulers of Satavahana dynasty. Satavahana dynasty, which ruled present day Andhra, Telangana and Maharashtra. So Deccan region especially. So that was the importance of the Nashik inscription. So because the Satavahana rulers followed matrilineal system. Matrilineal. What is the meaning of matrilineal? They derived their names from their mothers, not from their fathers, So that is also another importance given to the Satavahanas. So these are some of the important inscriptions made by various rulers in the ancient history of India. So summary. So what is the importance of these inscriptions in the history of India, in order to understand the history of India? So these inscriptions give credible, authentic information about the rulers of the time because they carry the original version of the ruler's thoughts. Original version of the ruler's thoughts. So, but there is another problem. There is also another problem because most of these rulers showed interest to glorify their own achievements without giving enough importance, without giving any importance to the contributions made by the previous rulers or their rivals or any others. And another important thing, these inscriptions only give information about, very little information about economic, political, social, cultural, religious conditions of the people. But most of these inscriptions, except for Ashokan inscriptions, most of the inscriptions made by the ancient Indian rulers would give importance only to the political aspects of their rule. That is another shortcoming of these inscriptions. So if a question is asked about these inscriptions and their contributions to reconstruct the ancient Indian history, which is much in confusion, hazy, because of rival points of view in studying history called historiography. The ancient distant past of Indian history was much contested and hazy for the historians to clearly make sense of. So in this particular situation, in this particular context, the information provided by these inscriptions would give a very good source of information for the historians to make sense of the past to a certain extent. But that is not the complete source of information. We cannot completely authenticate everything that was written in these inscriptions, because it was actually a matter of publicity. So we have to take it with a pinch of salt. So with that, we complete this concept of inscriptions. And most importantly, which kind of questions can be asked regarding these inscriptions. First of all, we have to study, you can make a list of important inscriptions, the time period in which they were made, and who were the rulers and to which dynasties they belonged, and the significance of these inscriptions. So I suggest to you that it is very important, it is very useful while revising the entire course just before a few days before the exam, especially prelims, to make a list of these inscriptions, to write briefly and give all sorts of facts like the inscription, the time period in which it was made, and the ruler who established it, and the dynasty to which he belonged, and the significance of the inscription in just 2 or 3 sentences. So that would give an edge to the aspirants to clearly understand the concept and also clearly attempt the question without any doubt. So which kind of questions can be asked? So especially there can be questions asked like matching. So on one side rulers' names can be given, on the other side the inscriptions which were made by them could be given, and also an inscription could be, the name of the inscription could be asked, and several statements about the purpose for which this inscription was made could also be asked. Later a question can be asked which of the above statements are correct in the context of certain inscription. So these kind of questions can be expected from the inscription part, so which is very, very important from the examination point of view, and hope all of you find this video helpful in your preparation for the prelims. Thank you very much.